Welcome to Leadership Unlocked, an interview-style podcast providing insights on how to lead people. Proudly brought to you by Human Interactions Australia. Welcome to Leadership Unlocked. Today is an interesting day because we are again still in lockdown in Sydney and in Melbourne. And so we've decided to use technology once again and use Zoom to be able to interview our very special guest, Mr. Jonathan Bass from FreightSafe. So welcome, Jonathan. Great to have you.
Thanks, Craig. Greatly appreciate the opportunity and lovely to engage.
Mate, tell us a little bit about FreightSafe. Freight industry is an interesting industry.
Yeah, sure. So, let's speak about the freight industry really broadly. I think, the freight industry is one of those things that to some degree has kept us all alive and sane during COVID. We take it so much for granted what the freight industry does, but the fact that we can now hop into our favorite e-commerce site and within 24 to 72 hours have something delivered to our door is already testament to what the freight industry does. There's a great saying that they throw around which says, if trucks stop, Australia stops. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. What FreightSafe does at its core is we are a digital claims manager. So we bolt onto large transport companies and insurance companies. And when the odd delivery is either lost or damaged in transit, we act as an extension of a transport company's customer service team and an insurance company's service team. We manage that claim for that loss or damage, and we provide solutions to generally the sender of the freight, generally by way of passing on compensation and settling a claim for them.
Yeah, interesting. And so obviously the freight industry is massive and there's that many players in it and it's quite a cutthroat industry. What does FreightSafe allow those organisations to be able to do, other than the obvious of focusing on core delivering packages? But what's FreightSafe allowed?
Yeah, sure. So, when a transport business loses or damages freight, it obviously puts a little bit of strain on the relationship that transport business has with their clients. What we do is really step into the middle of that relationship between provider and customer and say, hi guys, you've got a core working relationship at place, often which spans many years. Let us jump into the middle of this conversation, find out what went wrong, act as the neutral, honest broker, and figure out what happened, and if necessary, pay some compensation for the loss or damage. On behalf of the transport business, what we often do for them is really just protect their brand. They've obviously done something wrong, and goods have been lost or damaged in transit. And by having us in the middle of that relationship, we're just able to take a bit of heat out of the conversation, pay compensation, and get it done. And I guess for their customers, so transport businesses customers, really what we do is, because we're a digital first organization, so we've got 12 software engineers on staff, we're able to produce those outcomes just really, really quickly for the claimant. So instead of a claimant waiting 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks in order to get a result or compensation, we can generally do it within 24 hours and just really provide great service outcomes and get the relationship back on track.
That's brilliant. And what are you seeing at the moment, just with the freight palaver, shall I call it? It's tough getting space. It's tough. All prices have gone through the roof. There's probably a lot of pressure on people trying to get product out of specifically China. But what are you seeing in the industry for yourself?
Yeah, so we're predominantly focused on the domestic transport landscape. So freight, which works within Australia.
Yeah.
It's been a real challenge for transport businesses. So our clients in that, we're a federation, obviously, and, there's a set of federal laws, but each state has the power to legislate how it wants, specifically around managing COVID. So you have these transport businesses who need to cross borders, state borders, to fulfill freight tasks. And you have the New South Wales government with one set of legislation, Victoria with different, Queensland. So it's really become very, very challenging operationally for our clients to manage their businesses. That having been said, the transport industry has landed on I like to say, the lucky side of COVID, and that most of their businesses have exploded simply because, Mr. and Mrs. Smith can no longer walk into your typical Westfield and buy goods off their shelves. So they now need it delivered to their front door. And as a result of that, volumes of freight have really grown, and the transport business has generally, I have to make this as a general statement, seen significant success as a result. There obviously are a few transport businesses whose core competency was moving goods directly into a retail environment, and that's what they did as their predominant core focus. And they have suffered a little bit, but transport, as a general statement, while working in a very challenging operational environment, commercially they have done okay in the COVID environment.
I saw a high ace van last week, and we used the term, it was full. This van was full. There was no room in this vehicle anywhere. Dashboard up to the ceiling, on the floor. Like, it was, I don't even know how this guy was finding the parcels to deliver, what order he had it in. It was just outrageous.
It's fascinating. The transport industry, if they've had one challenge, and this is a multi-generation challenge now, is, young guys who historically would have got behind a big truck and driven it as a profession. The world has changed, and youngsters now want to work within the environments of technology and service-based industries and all the rest of it. But COVID has actually driven some opportunity for them, because there is so much work out there at the moment that if you're a young bloke or a young girl and you're looking for an opportunity, you can actually generate a reasonably good living at the moment simply by getting behind a truck.
Yeah.
Craig, to your point, getting behind that high-ace and delivering the hundreds of parcels. And the way that technology has allowed people to work now is, the ad hoc, unstructured work environments that we see, these unstructured labor forces. You can really almost rock up at one of the big parcel delivery companies these days and say, listen, I'd like to work 5 hours only on a Tuesday and 3 hours on a Thursday. Can I have some work? And they will gladly take you on, ready for that task of getting those parcels off that high aces dashboard and into homes.
Amazing. It's amazing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about you and your history. I know, some people love talking about themselves, others not so. So I'm not going to question you on that one, but let me hear a little bit about your history as in your roles, but as you've moved into leadership roles, and how your journey's kind of come about.
Yeah, sure. So I studied commerce law, Craig. I was actually a young lawyer by profession. I was working in a very large corporate environment for a short period of time. I have a twin brother, and we're in business together, and he had started up a small business while I was practicing as a lawyer. And the truth is, I hated every single moment of getting up and going to work as a young lawyer. And I called him up one day and I said, "You've got this little business going, don't you?" And he said, "Yep, indeed I do." I said, "I'm pretty sure I own some shares in that business. Make some space in the office." At that time, he was operating out of, I think it was literally 7 square meters of operating space. Huh. I'm signing up for a job. And that was about 18 years ago. I went to work with him. We're still business partners today, and in doing actually a whole range of different things together. But the leadership skills that I've developed really have been, building businesses on the go and forging our own way in the marketplace, and really refining things as our teams and organizations grew. And a little bit of, learn from the best and take on mentors and do a lot of reading and homework. And on the other side, make it up as you go and experiment and just find out the way that things work for you as, I guess, a leader, most effectively to generate outcomes, not only for your organization, but most importantly to us, for the people who we are very privileged to call our team and our staff.
So so that's a big change. It's not often. You actually often hear that. It's often lawyers go into that profession and they either love it or they do hate it. It doesn't seem to be a grey area often. So you've moved into this role, and your twin brother said, "Okay, I'll do this." How do you manage that now? Obviously you're both in the leadership roles. How do you manage the roles within the organisation?
Yeah, I remember the very first day, and again, this is a long time ago. The very first day I rocked up at this office that I referred to and said, "I'm working in this business." First thing he turned around to me and said was, "What exactly is your role in this business?" We had a very direct conversation straight off the bat. And I think what we do very, very well, my brother and I, his name's Anthony, is, we're able to identify what his skill sets are and what he is exceptionally good at. and certain things that I do well and thrive and really enjoy. And I kind of, said to him, what you do is what's going to make this business succeed in certain areas. And what I do is perhaps going to generate some outcomes in other areas. And very, very, very much so, we acknowledge what each other's skill sets are and each other's weaknesses are. And we have collaborated along those lines, and that I just leave him alone to build up certain parts of business, and he leaves me alone to do other things. And we were very, very successful in just acknowledging that. So he is very creative. He has got an amazing eye for marketing. We're involved in some other businesses, which is product-based business. He is entrepreneurial. He is a trader by heart and by nature. And Anthony can buy for one and sell for six more successfully than most. And I, on the other hand, I am much more analytical. I love data. I love understanding a roadmap. I love understanding very clearly how we're going to get from point A to Z. So he brings a lot of that passion and emotion and that foresight and creativity, and I bring a little bit more structure and discipline and perhaps a little bit more financial acumen to the table. But the blend of both of those things together, it just makes for a great working recipe.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you said to me offline before that he's a twin brother, so he's an identical twin brother. I've got identical twin girls, so I had a small insight at the moment about how those relationships work. They're quite intriguing. Are you competitive with each other?
So I'd say we are competitive. Our goal is not to be competitive with each other, but really what he demands from me is the best of what I should be bringing to the table in my 9 to 5. And I demand the same of him. I want that when Anthony comes to work, he really brings the best of who he is and what his skill sets are. And I think we are competitive in that way, in that I just want everything from him because I know what his competencies and capabilities are, and vice versa. We don't necessarily compete in the form of, I need to achieve more revenue than you do, or I need to deliver better outcomes than you do. But rather, I know that he demands 100% from me, and I simply, essentially demand the same from him. And that is where our competitive natures exist. And it really, while it puts us both under a bit of pressure from each other, I'm almost his boss and he is my boss.
Yes.
We ultimately deliver really good results from that kind of a dynamic.
And obviously, with twins, trust is a huge component of that relationship. And we do a fair bit of work around trust with organisations and building trust within an organisation because we see it as foundational. How does that play out for you guys?
Craig, I've been fortunate enough over the years that I've been approached by a whole bunch of young guys who, they've got entrepreneurial ideas and passions, and they want to build businesses. And very often they'll come to me and say, listen, I've got idea A, I'm working with Jenny or I'm working with Steve, I want to build up this business. And I just met Jenny or Steve the other day, but I think they're great, so we're going to build up this business. And what I do first and foremost is, prior to focusing on the business model, which either is fantastic and often disastrous, I often want to just understand what that dynamic of the relationship is. Because when you go into business with someone as a partner, I often refer to it as a marriage, and almost, other than sharing a bed with each other, you live with each other far more than you live with your family or your spouse. You go through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows together. You are faced with challenges that, you would never ordinarily expect. Everybody goes into business as an optimist and comes out a little bit of a realist, I find. And so trust and the dynamics of that relationship is absolutely imperative. And I was very, very fortunate that Anthony and I, it's one thing we have never, ever had to question or understand in any way, just because obviously from our very formative years, I think I spent shared a bunk bed with Anthony until the age of like 14 or 15 kind of thing. And just by way of really living with each other and breathing, every single thing that we did to each other, trust comes as a given. And we were very, very fortunate to be able to build the base of our relationship, taking that for granted. And I don't think that is necessarily the case when you enter into an ordinary business relationship with third parties who you may know to some degree, or perhaps not, very intimately, I guess. And so trust, I'm absolutely aligned with you in your thinking that it is very, very formative to building a business and the dynamics of any relationship. And so, yeah, we were very lucky to have that in place.
Yeah, amazing. And have you seen in your past when you were doing the lawyer thing where trust really kind of became an issue where it went the other way?
Yeah, it's I had two major reasons for leaving the corporate environment, Craig. One is because I think the corporate workforce, and especially then, I think things have hopefully changed in recent times, but they almost viewed you as a commodity as a very young lawyer, which I was at the time. I was 23, 24 years old, and you're a commodity that can be sold to the market at inexpensive prices. There is almost a labor arbitrage opportunity where there's huge margins put on top of your head, but you're expected to do anything and everything in return for that business and just, really work for them in any way or form. And I really, really didn't enjoy that. It was my primary reason for leaving. And, I just really hated doing that and really being asked, you're going to be at work at 7:30, 8 a.m. We've got a matter which is settling in a day or two, and you need to just work as long as you need to work. And I think what big corporate Australia, at least historically, didn't understand is they were ultimately dealing with people's lives. But many youngsters were treated as pawns, and I have enormous respect for commercial Australia or corporate Australia. I think they do a lot of the creativity and ingenuity and innovation comes out of corporate Australia these days, but it was something which really left a poor taste in my mind. I guess the second thing which really attracted me to going out and doing my own thing is I felt specifically as a young person in corporate Australia that until you had 5-10 years under your belt, your voice really didn't stand for much, no matter what you brought to the table. And I think if you're the master of your own destiny, and not to say that it is, filled with only, incredible experiences, there's a significant amount of challenge in being your own business, but really you're allowed to have a voice and be that master of your own destiny and bring some entrepreneurism to the table and have a little fun and be creative in what you do, as opposed to running in a very prescriptive environment.
We're seeing the terminology diversity and inclusion is becoming, very, I don't want to say fad, I guess that undermines the term, but it's not. Certainly very prominent at the moment. And, if you look at that, diversity, of course, is across different genders, beliefs, spirituals, the whole thing. But the inclusion is saying, are we listening to everybody, and valuing what they say? And I think this whole trust piece is really important for leaders, because if they don't trust their people, then the behavior will be they won't include people in conversations. It's kind of where I'm heading at this point with this stuff.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's been a move to allowing your people to take risks and to experiment, what have you. But I think this is new thinking. And I think, historically, big corporates didn't want risk and they didn't want creativity because it potentially led to, either reputational risks for themselves or what have you. And I think you're right, Craig, that, inclusion and diversity now also leads to experimentation. Let's listen to everybody, regardless of whether they're 18 or 80, because everybody has something to offer and bring to the table. And I think it's been a realization in big corporate Australia in recent years, and I think it's done a lot of good. Australia, just by its very nature, we are a country of foreigners. I speak for myself. I'm from South Africa. I finished school in South Africa, and I had the very, very fortunate opportunity for my whole family to migrate here when I was 18 years old, and really the greatest thing that my parents ever did for us. But we live in a community and a country which is just filled with diversity. And it is such an enormous opportunity because each culture, each dynamic really, really brings something completely different. And if we are tone deaf and just not listening to those voices which offer that point of difference, it's such a lost opportunity. But I really think we're getting significantly better at it. And I think we've come a long way over the years, perhaps more recently. And yeah, I think we're changing for the better as a business community.
Yeah, we use a great diagnostic called DISC, which allows people to understand what their communication styles are and what their behavioral styles are, so that you do start to appreciate the other person better. You need to understand why you or how you operate and how you communicate. And once you know that and then understand somebody else's, you become a lot more, I guess, flexible, a lot more adaptable in the workplace. And that we see that teams and culture start to really improve massively when they start to understand themselves and each other better. So it's a good thing. So the team, how many we got on team? You've got 12, you said, in the IT space.
Yeah, Craig, we're approaching around 50 people now. I think we've got 45 in staff at the moment. Again, we spoke about COVID at the beginning of this conversation. It's accelerated our journey a little bit, and we are in a bit of a hiring spree at the moment. We try where possible to allow technology to do a lot of heavy lifting for us, and we are very much technology-led, people-driven is what I like to say. So we have, a few number of very, very heavy brains and smart and capable people around us, but we got a lot of technology doing the lifting, and we continue to invest very heavily in technology. It is a tool ultimately which just really benefits the whole value chain, be it your own organization and the people who are in it, as well as our customers and the outcomes which we're able to deliver to them through technology.
And do you have a senior technology person? Because you said you're more kind of the commercial director, and you've got the entrepreneurial brother in Anthony. Is there a head in the IT? Because that's an interesting space, technology.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm acutely aware of is what I am capable of, and more importantly, are the things that I'm not capable of. And I love technology. I've learned to become confident around it, and I can speak a little bit to it, but by no means am I a technologist. And we have very, very good technology leaders in our organization. The truth is that a lot of our people, we evolve while we operate in the transport space. Really, some of the products which we touch and allow us to deliver the service that we do, believe it or not, are in the insurance space.
Yeah, right.
So in our leadership team, none of our people come from an insurance background. And other than our very, very senior technology people, none of us actually come from a technology background. And I think that has actually been a very good thing for our organization, because any preconceptions we had around what insurance should be and what it shouldn't be, and technology should or shouldn't be, those preconceptions didn't exist. And it allowed us really to carve our own path forward. Obviously, you reach a certain point where you say, listen, I need to surround myself with people who have a history. And we now have people who have incredible insurance backgrounds and technology backgrounds, but our general management team doesn't come from a technology or an insurance background.
So how many in the team? Obviously you said there's 50 staff, but how many in the general management team? Or the
leadership? In our general management team, we have 6 people now, Craig. I'm very proud to say, and this is not by choice, this is simply by, the best people for the roles, but there's 4 females in our leadership team and 2 females. I'd say 4 of them are below the age of 35 years old. They've got a very... I'm
just going to interrupt. You said 4 females and 2 females.
Sorry, well, let's repeat. Let's get that
right. Get that. I want, because this is a good point. We need to get this clear. 4 males and 2 females?
My brain's obviously running ahead of my mouth. I apologize. We've got 4 females and 2 males in our team. And of those people, 4 of them are below the age of 35. So we have a very young and dynamic leadership team. We are not stuck on male or female. It doesn't make a difference. And we are not stuck on whether you're 18 or 80. We genuinely want and seek out the best people for the job. And I think a part of a leader's role, in getting this right is, and I think it's a point which is overlooked, because what leadership has often become is, once you've got your team, how you manage that and how you take your organization forward by leading a team. And we put a lot of focus actually on the hiring process, because if you hire the best people for the role, then leadership doesn't necessarily need to be an absolute active role that you focus every minute of the day in forming strategy and leadership, because really you have just incredible people who are around you who have the IQ and the EQ to make their own informed decisions to guide the business forward. So we spend a lot of time on hiring, but when we hire, really we could do it at the black screen. I don't want to know your voice. I don't want to know if it's female or male. I don't want to know how old you are. We just want to get incredible results for our organization. And hiring is a big part of that.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing point around leadership. It's you get the right people, that leadership becomes so much easier, doesn't it?
Agreed. Absolutely agree.
It's not managing people, it is actually leading people. So my guess is that you have some strong values as a business because, with the very distinct roles that you and your brother have, and then you've got this leadership team, if you're not all heading in the right direction, then, that's an accident waiting to happen. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think it's a very fair assumption, Craig. One of the things I did, and perhaps, I speak about my corporate journey. It was a very short journey, but it really left some indelible marks on who I am today. And again, and I mentioned this earlier, and I don't want to harp on it. And I really am not looking to put a negative spin on corporate Australia, but I think what corporate Australia lacked in those days is acknowledging people as people. And it is first and foremost in our leadership strategy is really to put ourselves constantly and consistently in the shoes of our team and to understand that they are at work because they have needs. They need to pay their bills, they need to go home, they need to care for their families. But first and foremost, they are people with real emotions and nonsense going in their lives and their own personal heartaches and, I guess, wins and opportunities. But we treat our people like people. So one of the big things in our organization is I, as a leader, arrive at my desk with intent at 9:05 every morning, and I leave my desk with intent at 5:05 because I want my team to understand that my life is not this business. My life is being at home with my wife, being at home with my 4 beautiful boys, giving to my community, doing the things which I enjoy. And I'm at work, obviously, to see commercial returns in the businesses which we operate, but I'm at work because work is an imperative. We all need to work. But really, I do those things because I want my team to understand that that's almost the expectation that we have of them. We want them to be people first and foremost. And that is really, really one of the core strategies of our leadership team is, acknowledge your people as people. That is the first thing. Once you understand that and you put yourself in their shoes, it's much, much easier to build relationships and I guess lead authentically.
Where does that come from? Is that you've said to me before, some of it you've just learnt along the way, some of it's, I guess, maybe your own belief systems, some of it you've read in a book, but because you're incredibly passionate about this when I talk to you now, like I'm seeing you on Zoom and you're lighting up around this people piece, which is what we do. We love the fact that people are so important in a business. I mean, we just wish more people would get this, but where does it come from?
I am passionate about this. When you speak about leadership, I spoke to yourself and some of your team around you prior to this piece, and there were almost some formalized questions. That's what you can expect from the podcast. And I have never viewed leadership as a list of bullet points on a task sheet that one has to emulate. I think leadership needs to be authentic, and really what we've done. And I think today I'm a reasonable leader, but I know that over the last 17, 18 years of being in business, there have been parts of and periods of time which I've really perhaps almost failed as a leader, Craig, just because I didn't have the skill sets and what have you. So the position I find myself in today, I think it's been a journey of learning and self-reflection and introspection. And I'm a little bit hard on myself in terms of how can I improve, which is good. I don't think that is a bad thing. And I think the views and the understanding that we have of leading people and building a culture of understanding people and the dynamics has really come from a journey. That's the first. The second is, I am very proud to take on mentors in my life. I am never, ever too big for my boots to believe that I know it all. And almost on the extreme contrary, I sometimes don't back myself and give myself the acknowledgement of what we achieved and where we are, but I'm very, very keen to learn from people. So I listen actively, first to my family and my parents. My parents have been very, very strong role models for me, and my father's been in a number of leadership roles over the years, really involved in community first and foremost, and then in business. And I think just to listen and understand and almost take back seats and just watch how those people who you really look up to achieve an element of greatness, I guess.
Yeah.
And try to replicate that and try and live through that.
So what do you know, if you were to be a little bit open and honest here, what are the areas that you feel like you as a person could improve on as a leader, what are kind of the things that are forefront of your mind at the moment? And I don't ask this to expose you. I ask it because I think it's helpful for other people to see that they might have the same thing. They may have the same thinking.
Yeah, absolutely, Craig. So, I think, and perhaps an area where I really, really struggled with initially is I had this belief, and this was perhaps in my early 20s, maybe into my, let's be more transparent, perhaps even into my early 30s, to say that, I understand what's happening in this business. I can control it strategically. I know operationally what needs to happen. Let me empower people through giving them tasks and responsibilities to do. And really what we did, and we did very poorly, is our leadership team had an understanding of where the business was going, but I feel that we were very, very poor in communicating more broad strategy to our broader team. And I think communication, and it's still something which I really, really have to almost be conscious of, is actively communicating to our broader organization of, this is where we are, this is where we're heading, this is the journey and how we plan on getting there. Come along for the ride, because while our leadership and management teams may understand that and buy into it and they live it and breathe it, I think sometimes I'm very, very average at communicating that more broadly to our team. And that involves us, acknowledging that, A, and then B, putting in mechanisms so we can both formally and informally communicate to our teams what our strategy is, where we're heading and what that journey looks like.
My experience around that is often management or leadership teams will communicate it, but they don't communicate it at a level, at different levels to different people within the organization. So they could present it at this higher level, and then the people that are not so high in the organization go, well, I don't get it. And so their comment is, we don't know really what's going on. Nobody communicates to us. Yet you are communicating, but just at a completely different level.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more, Craig. I think another area which I've struggled with is, I've always taken a view, and this is just because it has always resonated very strongly with me, is that we almost don't need hierarchy and management structures in an organization. And I, for many, many years, operated without a title. I didn't need to be the CEO. I didn't need to be the managing director, the commercial director, anything else, because that is what I believed. But what I failed to understand is that my people wanted a structure. They wanted B, recognition, and I love recognition. I'm very, very big on recognition. I just don't think recognition needs to necessarily equate to a title. But what I found out, and it was just through wonderful communication from other people in my team feeding back to me, is that, listen, people want structure, they want titles, they want reporting structures, they want to know where they stand in an organization. And it's never resonated very truly to me in terms of having almost a tiered structure with titles. And it's really been a learning curve for me, just in terms of almost empowering other people through, just giving them, I guess, what they want, as opposed to what I felt was the right way to manage an element of the organization.
I'm seeing that more and more, that we went through a stage of flat structures, and you can get it flatter, but people want to know who they report to. They really do. And so what do you allow you to pat yourself on the back for a little now? Well, what do you believe your strengths are? What are some things that you've worked on? You go, I'm doing this pretty well right now, and I'm happy that I'm doing it well.
Listen, I think one of the things that we've been able to do is, our staff retention in our organization, touch wood, is almost at 100%. We don't lose people, because I think one thing we do incredibly, incredibly well is, when we invite somebody into our organization, and we're slow to invite people into our organization, it really has to be the really right people for us. We absolutely, absolutely shower them with love, and we really, really make them feel like they're part of the organization. So we are very, very good at touching our people, understanding our people, being empathetic towards our people, giving them a voice in our organization. And, our tenure of people in our organization, as the organization grows, we just have people where we turn around and say, you've been with us for 10 years, you've been with us for 12 years, you've been with us for 9 years. And we turn around and say, why is that the case? And I really, really am proud to say that I really feel that we give to our people so genuinely, not for the sake of giving, just because we understand that they are people and people want to be acknowledged and rewarded and should be treated with respect and care at all times, that I think we've become exceptionally good at making this a people-first organization and retaining the best of the best, and growing a people-first organization.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's amazing what you're doing. It's awesome. It's a great culture you've built by the sound of it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's amazing.
That, culture is a word which is thrown around and used, I think, very cheaply these days. And you read all these, job adverts and people say, culture and this and that. And I think there's a lot of unfortunate spin around those kind of things. I think culture is something which you need to be authentic about and say, well, if we are going to do this, it's going to be very much at the expense of your profit and loss, and at the expense of perhaps sometimes around short-term productivity in response for long-term gains. But if you really, really commit to a cultural journey and you're very sincere about it, ultimately the long-term rewards, both commercially and from a productivity point of view, are just, and I think there's probably significant data to support this, but it's really incredible what you can achieve.
I think it's the humble part. I think it's the humble approach too. I have this theory. I'm not sure I can explain it well enough, but I guess the analogy is, watching things like The Voice or, some of those shows. It's the people that have had the real talent and the real skill and the real ability, yet they're humble with that skill. They don't go touting it about, are the ones that really shine. And I get the same feeling with my conversation with you right now. It's this, you're absolutely humble and passionate about this, and you just do it. You're not doing it for any prize. You're not doing it for any pat on the back yourself. It's just a strong skill that you have, and you're reaping the rewards because of it.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate that. It's really, again, it's as a result, I think, of my mentors, my parents. I'm not somebody who goes out and flaunts, and has a massive ego and says, we've achieved this and we've achieved that and we've done this and we've done that. I'm very, very grateful and have enormous gratitude, and I'm very blessed for what we've achieved commercially in our lives. But that's not how I don't need to show it through putting plasterboards of us and our team and our organization all around the world. I think you get much, much more enjoyment in life from giving as opposed to receiving. And I understand that from having really, I guess, just experienced it through people I look up to and having watched them do it and them receiving that enormous gratitude and I guess rewards from that, and it's very much part of who we are today.
So if you took on a mentor role, if you were mentoring somebody now and you had to give them 3 key, directions or advice or counsel, what would be 3 things you would tell a young person who's just come into a leadership role?
Yeah, listen, I think the first one is a very easy one. I'd say the first one is you need to set the standard for whatever you're trying to achieve as a leader. So if you want to achieve as a leader that, hard work is what our organization wants, or working 9 to 5 is what our organization wants, or giving back to your community is what our organization wants, is you as that leader need to set the standard. And that is done simply by demonstration. Somebody far wiser than me said that leadership is an action, not a position. And I think that's absolutely true. If you want your team to follow you down a journey, then you need to act accordingly. And I think setting the standard would be my first one that I would put out there.
Yeah, nice.
The second one is, I think, to be collaborative in your approach is the best way to achieve results. So, while I've mentioned earlier that communication is not part of my strength, bringing people around fire and sitting around and talking and solving problems and chewing the facts together. And I think sharing your problems is a huge one. I think opening that gate and bringing people around a table is very, very powerful. And part of that is understanding as a leader that you don't have all the answers, and to surround yourself with others who can add value to your journey, be it, smarter people around the table, mentors, advisors, the 18-year-old who will know far more about, social media, technology, communication, etc. is, I think bringing other people around the table and embracing other people as part of your journey from a very, very early stage would be my next one. And then I think the last one is being passionate. I think, leadership, unfortunately, has become something which is almost too structured these days. People want to say, this is how you have to be an authentic leader. You have to do A, B, and C. And I think unfortunately, leadership is something which we read about in textbooks and it's almost become prescriptive. They teach it at universities, follow the manual. And I think if you have an understanding of who you are, and you really are genuine about bringing your team along for the journey, then to put through passion to your team and a bit of emotion and wear your heart on the sleeve. I wear my heart on my sleeve to excess, perhaps, maybe a little bit too much, but I think that comes through in the form of passion. And I think your team see it. I think when you're passionate about something and your team can feel it, they breathe it, they understand it. I think people want to see that, as opposed to, I'm a prescriptive manager and a leader, and I'm going to catch up with you once a month or once every 3 months because that is what my manual says.
Yeah.
I don't think that necessarily generates the best results.
Mate, I've got one last question for you. Are you a rugby man or a cricket fan?
Well, I'm a bit of both, Craig. My kids are tragics. Anything that is on the television which involves sports, be it anything from NRL, soccer, AFL, rugby, they are there, and I come along for the journey. My father is, again, and I've spoken about my father a lot in this short journey. He instilled sports in us from a very young age, and I'm also, I prefer to participate as opposed to spectate, but sport is something which I really, really enjoy.
And so what do you participate in is the obvious question.
Well, I've become, when I was younger, I used to spend a lot of time on the soccer field. I really enjoyed playing soccer as a youngster. I realized that I'm not so young anymore and perhaps not as good as I once thought I was. So I actually spend a lot of time on the road these days. I do a fair amount of road running.
Yeah, good.
It's an amazing, amazing stress buster. And it's amazing how much business strategy and family strategy I figure out in my own little head just by being alone and sweating and perhaps pushing myself through certain physical barriers.
There's some amazing analogy with running. I do a lot of running myself, and there's some amazing analogies on how you can approach your business and your life through some of the struggles that running can give you. So what's your greatest achievement in running?
Well, there you go. It's a great question. And my greatest achievement is the achievement that I haven't achieved just yet, Craig. So I've got a lot of 21 kilometers under my belt, half marathons. My greatest achievement will be when I run my first full marathon. It was going to be in the year of COVID 2021. We've had a lot of half marathons and full marathons being cancelled as a result, as you would know as a runner. But to your point, running there's fantastic analogies with running, but what it allows you to do, let's go back really, really quickly. Soccer, that there's 90 minutes to run on the soccer field, and that's all you need to do. You need to run hard for 90 minutes. The wonderful thing about running, and similar to business, are the barriers which you set, are the barriers which you create for yourself. And if you want to run 5 kilometers, that is because that's what you've created as a barrier. And if you want to run 42 kilometers, that is because that's what you created as your barrier. And I have this mental block to date. I've probably gone 31 kilometers as my furthest. But this is the year of breaking barriers on the road. And my goal is, my greatest achievement will be the achievement that I have not achieved just yet, which will be to get to 42 kilometers, a full marathon. And let's hope COVID allows in the next few months for me to do that. I'm well on the way in terms of training, should I say.
I hope you're allowing for the 0.195 because it's 42.195 kilometres.
I appreciate the reminder. Thank you.
Jonathan, what an absolute privilege to have you on our podcast, Leadership Unlocked. It's some amazing stuff in there. I love some of I really love the people stuff. That people are human. They're human after all, and they do have their own idiosyncrasies and they have their own needs and values, and we are there to support and facilitate their world a little bit as well.
Yeah, Craig, listen, I really appreciate the opportunity and thank you very much. And I've been able to enjoy some of the podcasts that you and your team have put together today from human interactions, and some fantastic stuff out of there, which I've really taken for myself and will own moving forward. So thank you for the work that you continue to do, and looking forward to learning more from you and your future podcasts.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.